The daycare and Pokémon nursery. Breeding in Pokémon starts here, at a small building on the side of a route where an old couple will watch your Pokémon for you. No questions asked. The daycare debuted in Pokémon Red and Blue, and for generations it did double duty, leveling up your Pokémon while also quietly generating eggs in the background. The problem was that leveling could overwrite moves you actually wanted, which is why Game Freak eventually replaced it with the Nursery starting in Sun and Moon in 2016. The Nursery keeps your Pokémon exactly as you left them, frozen in place, doing nothing but producing eggs. Every 256 steps or so, the worker outside will have something new for you, and that something is the foundation of every competitive team ever built. Egg groups. Not every Pokémon can breed with every other Pokémon, and the system that governs this is called egg groups. There are 15 of them in total, with names like Field, Fairy, Dragon, Amorphous, and the somewhat blunt Water 1, Water 2, and Water 3. Every breedable Pokémon belongs to at least one, and some belong to two simultaneously, which creates surprising compatibility. Charizard, for example, sits in both Monster and Dragon, meaning it can breed with a Dragonite. The group that matters most to know about, though, is the one called No Eggs Discovered. Legendaries, most baby Pokémon, and Unknown all fall here, and they simply cannot produce eggs under any normal circumstances. The egg group system is invisible in the game, never explained by any NPC, and yet it is the first wall every breeder has to understand before anything else works. Ditto, the universal parent. Ditto is the most important Pokémon in the entire breeding system, and it is not particularly close. This formless pink blob can breed with almost any Pokémon that is capable of producing eggs, regardless of egg group, because it essentially occupies its own category entirely. It cannot breed with another Ditto, and it cannot breach the No Eggs Discovered group, but everything else is fair game. When you pair Ditto with another Pokémon, the baby is always the species of the non-Ditto parent, which makes it invaluable for breeding male-only lines like Hitmonchan, or completely genderless species like Magnezone that would otherwise have no breeding partner at all. A high IV Ditto, ideally from a game set to a foreign language, is the single most sought-after Pokémon on every online trading platform for good reason: gender ratios. Before you can breed most species, you need to understand that gender is not evenly distributed. Each breedable Pokémon has a fixed ratio baked into its species data, and for a lot of the most popular ones, that ratio is brutally skewed. The three starter lines, Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, and all their modern equivalents, are 87.5% male and only 12.5% female. In practical terms, roughly 1 in every 8 starters you hatch will be female, and you need a female if you want to chain breed egg moves without relying on Ditto. Some species go further, like the Chansey line, which is 100% female, while Tauros sits at 100% male. Gender is assigned when the egg is generated, not when it hatches, so there is no manipulating it after the fact. The egg. Once a compatible pair is left together, the daycare worker will eventually wave you down and hand you an egg. The egg itself is always the same generic white and green spotted sprite, regardless of what is inside, with a single famous exception being the Manaphy egg, which has its own distinct appearance. You do not know the species, the nature, or the stats until it hatches. The egg goes straight into your party and stays there, a quiet passenger, until you have walked enough steps to crack it open. Eggs can be traded to other players before hatching, which has made surprise trades a small culture of their own, and a received egg will hatch into whatever was inside, regardless of whose game it opens in. Egg steps and the hatch counter. Every species in the game has a hidden egg cycle value, and each cycle corresponds to roughly 255 to 257 steps the player must physically walk. Magikarp hatches almost immediately, requiring around 1,280 steps total, which makes sense given that a level 1 Magikarp is essentially useless anyway. At the other extreme, Beldum and the Dratini line require closer to 10,240 steps, meaning you will be circling the same bridge or looping the same route for a genuinely long time. The Pokémon bike has been the traditional solution since the second generation, and the Rotom bike introduced in Sword and Shield in 2019 made the process feel slightly less like a chore. Every serious breeder has a mental map of the shortest loop in whatever game they are playing. Flame Body and Magma Armor. The single most impactful quality of life decision you make when setting up a breeding session is which Pokémon you carry in your party alongside the eggs. If any Pokémon in your party has the ability Flame Body or Magma Armor, every egg you are carrying hatches in exactly half the normal number of steps. Talonflame, introduced in Generation 6, became the go-to carrier because it is fast, easily caught, and commonly has Flame Body. Magcargo and Camerupt serve the same function. Crucially, the effect does not stack if you have 2 Flame Body Pokémon in the party, so there is no reason to carry more than one. The ability holder does not need to be in the first slot. It simply needs to exist somewhere in your party of 6. Inheriting the species. The species of the hatched Pokémon is always the base evolution of the mother, or the base evolution of the non-Ditto parent when Ditto is involved. This sounds simple, but has real practical consequences. If you breed a female Gardevoir, you get Ralts, not Kirlia, and not another Gardevoir. If you breed a female Pikachu, you get Pichu, because Pichu is the base form of that line. This matrilineal rule is why female Pokémon are so central to chain breeding strategies, where you need to pass moves down a lineage. The only exceptions to the base evolution rule involve specific held items called incense, which force the mother to produce an alternate, rarer pre-evolution instead of the standard one. Incense breeding and baby Pokémon. Several Pokémon have pre-evolutionary baby forms that can only be obtained through breeding when the mother holds a specific incense item. Without the incense, the egg produces the standard base form. With it, you get something rarer, and in some cases considerably cuter. A female Snorlax holding a full incense will produce a Munchlax instead of another Snorlax. A female Marill holding a sea incense produces Azurill. A female Wobbuffet holding a lax incense produces Wynot. The full list also includes rock incense for Bonsly, pure incense for Mime Jr., odd incense for Mr. Mime breeding into Mime Jr., and wave incense for Mantike. These baby forms cannot be found in the wild in most games, making incense breeding the only legitimate way to obtain them. Egg moves. Egg moves are moves. A Pokémon can only learn by being hatched from parents that know them. Moves that do not appear on any level up list and cannot be taught by TM. They matter enormously in competitive play because some of the most powerful move combinations in the game are locked behind the system. A Charmander with Dragon Dance, for instance, can only get that move through breeding, and a Marill with Aqua Jet is the same story. Historically, only the father passed egg moves, but Generation 6 opened it up so either parent could contribute. Then, Generation 8 went further, by allowing 2 Pokémon of the same species to share egg moves simply by being left together at the nursery, which significantly reduced the time investment required to get the right move combinations stacked on a single Pokémon. IVs, individual values, underneath every visible stat in every Pokémon game, since Generation 3 is a hidden number between 0 and 31, called an individual value. 6 of them, 1 for each stat: HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. A 31 in any stat is called a perfect IV, and a Pokémon with 31s across all 6 stats is the foundation of any serious competitive team. Without deliberate breeding, the IVs a Pokémon inherits are essentially random, meaning a wild-caught Pokémon is almost certainly not competitive ready, no matter how good its species is. The earlier Generation 1 and 2 games used a slightly different system called determinant values that ran from 0 to 15, but the modern IV framework was formalized and locked in with Ruby and Sapphire in 2002. The Destiny Knot. The Destiny Knot is the item that transforms IV breeding from a lottery into an actual process with a predictable endpoint. Without it, each egg inherits exactly 3 random IVs from its 2 parents, with the other 3 being completely random. Equip the Destiny Knot on one parent, and suddenly 5 IVs are inherited from the combined pool of 12 parental stats, with only the 6th left to chance. The standard strategy is to hold the Destiny Knot on the parent with better IVs, typically a 5 or 6 IV Ditto, and then gradually replace the weaker parent as you hatch offspring with better stats. The Destiny Knot existed in earlier generations as a lore item with a completely different effect, but its IV passing function was not added until Generation 6. Natures. There are 25 natures in the Pokémon games, each one named after a personality trait, and 20 of them actually affect your stats. A beneficial nature raises one stat by 10% and lowers another by 10%, and choosing the wrong one can make an otherwise perfectly bred Pokémon unviable in competitive play. A Garchomp wants Jolly, which boosts speed at the cost of special attack it was never going to use anyway. A modest Tyranitar sounds thematic, but is a disaster in practice. The Everstone is the item that locks nature into the breeding process, because whichever parent holds it will pass its nature to the offspring with 100% reliability. This mechanic was introduced in Generation 4, and the standard setup since Generation 6 has been one parent holding the Everstone and the other holding the Destiny Knot simultaneously. Ability. Inheritance. Abilities in Pokémon come in up to 3 varieties per species: Ability 1, Ability 2, and the rare hidden ability, which is usually obtained through special events or the Friend Safari and similar systems. The female parent determines which ability slot is passed to the egg, with roughly a 60% chance the offspring inherits the mother's specific slot. Hidden abilities are passed exclusively through the female line, meaning a male Pokémon with a hidden ability contributes nothing to ability inheritance unless it is bred with Ditto. When a male or genderless Pokémon with a hidden ability is bred with Ditto, the offspring has roughly a 60% chance of inheriting it, which makes Ditto the only way to breed hidden abilities onto male-only or genderless species. The pass rate for hidden abilities sits at approximately 60%, meaning you are not guaranteed to get it even with a correctly set up pair, and this alone can add significant time to an already lengthy breeding project. Pokeball inheritance. Before Generation 6, every single Pokémon that hatched from an egg appeared in a plain, standard Pokeball. Full stop. It did not matter if the mother was caught in a Safari Ball or a cherished Apricorn Ball, the baby came out in red and white like everything else. Generation 6 changed that by allowing the mother's ball to pass to the offspring, which instantly made rare balls a major status symbol in competitive play. A Larvitar in a Moon Ball or a Kangaskhan in a Safari Ball signals that someone put real effort into their collection. Generation 8 extended the rule further, allowing the male parent's ball to pass when that parent is paired with Ditto. The 2 exceptions are the Master Ball and the Cherish Ball, both of which revert to a standard Pokeball and cannot be inherited. The Masuda method. In 2007, Pokémon Diamond and Pearl quietly introduced one of the most influential shiny hunting techniques in the franchise's history, named after Game Freak director Junichi Masuda. The base odds of encountering a shiny Pokémon in the post-Generation 6 games sit at 1 in 4,096. If you breed 2 Pokémon that originate from games set to different languages, those odds collapse to approximately 1 in 683. A Japanese Ditto paired with an English Charmander qualifies. A French Eevee paired with a German Umbreon qualifies. The Pokémon do not need to be different species, just different language origins. This single mechanic turned foreign language Ditto into the most sought-after trade on the global trade system for years, with players in Europe and North America willing to offer near legendaries just to get their hands on a Japanese one. The Shiny Charm. If the Masuda method is the engine, the Shiny Charm is the turbocharger. Obtained by completing the regional Pokédex in the games that offer it, the Shiny Charm passively reduces the base Shiny encounter rate from 1 in 4,096 down to approximately 1 in 1,365. When you stack it on top of the Masuda method, the combined odds drop further to roughly 1 in 512, which sounds small, but still means you could reasonably hatch several hundred eggs before seeing the sparkle animation. The charm was introduced in Black 2 and White 2 in 2012, though the exact games that include it have varied across the series. Completing the Pokédex to earn it is its own significant project, which means the Shiny Charm is a reward that requires you to have already done a lot of the hardest work in the game. Bred versus caught. Why any of this matters. A wild-caught Pokémon walks into battle with random IVs, a random nature, its standard ability, no egg moves, and a plain Pokeball. A properly bred Pokémon can have 5 or 6 perfect IVs, the exact nature its moveset demands, its hidden ability, a full complement of egg moves that could not be learned any other way, and a rare apricorn ball that signals it was built with intention. The gap between these two Pokémon, even if they are the same species at the same level, is enormous. Breeding is the primary legitimate path to a competitive ready team, and every mechanic in this video feeds into the next one in sequence. You need the right egg group to start, the right ability on the parent, the Destiny Knot and Everstone set up correctly, the Masuda method Ditto ready, and Flame Body in your party to make it move at a reasonable pace. Pull it all together, and what you get is a Pokemon that was genuinely built, not found. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.